Big series here, but not as big as the final one coming up today between Slam and Lucho. S0bek is safe from relegation, regardless of what happens. The only way he can get first would be a sweep here, which feels unlikely with how good Vivi's been playing. Vivi's had a great season, good bounce-back season for him. Just one win from Vivi. He's first place and back to platinum. So we've got Huns for him. We've got Hindustanis for S0bek. They're actually very close together right now.
Yeah, they're sort of on both western, I guess, angles of the cross of the map. And already, they could be fighting over the same pond to start with, depending on which direction they want to send their villager.
Oh, that's actually a really good point. Yeah. So we made changes to TC spawns to make it maps a little bit more fair. And I wouldn't necessarily say that this has made it less fair because they both could have the same struggles. But it's pretty rare that the initial dock would go in the same spot. Now, I think from Vivi's perspective, though, you always want the safest dock, which is usually to the back corner. So I think he'll dock the south. I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, I'd say that's fairly likely. Got the 5 vills on wood here, luring a boar. That is all fine and dandy. And the Hindustanis pick, I think, is pretty interesting. I mean, Huns we've seen on Cross. I know you've been doing this a long time. I think you've seen a lot of Hun games on Cross. I know I have.
Yeah.
Hindustanis, I think, are a bit more interesting.
Yeah, I quite like it, actually. Honestly, they just feel like such a smooth pick. Not even in Castle Age and beyond, and there's a list of bonuses we could talk about. But on maps where you want to go scouts, and in a meta where people like to wall, having scouts that take out buildings faster is really helpful. I think we saw a bit of that in the final game with Gookie and Overtaken, actually, where Overtaken opted for walls, but then there were some panicky moments when the scouts were out. So I think it's super smooth in Feudal, and then in Castle Age, if you can get to Camel Skirm, it could be a real struggle for the Huns.
Yeah, absolutely. Although the one, I guess, caveat I would have to that is that because we always see, so much fighting here for the pawns on Cross, typically those more low eco-investment army compositions tend to be a bit stronger. So knights that don't require as many upgrades, cav archers which don't cost food, whereas Camel Skirm feels like something that's a lot of food and wood on a map where you tend to not quite have as many of those resources.
Yeah, I think you'd have to win the pawns probably to have that food. And I just don't know. I feel like early Castle Age, it's hard to have both, right? So it's usually you commit towards one, and opening with both of those things can be awkward. Usually it's Knights and Crossbow in early Castle Age that are the strongest. Skirm doesn't give you a strong power spike unless your opponent has archers, and then Camels, only a response to Knights. You're not really going to raid eco with Camels too much.
Yeah, and of course, if you're looking at Huns, of course, they tend to go for lots of cav archers in early Castle Age. Then you kind of have to make that decision. Do you want to go for the camels or the skirms to counter that and kind of transition into the other one a little bit later? And how are you going to manage that if you're fighting for water? And of course, my fears from the beginning are completely unfounded as they're both docking in the opposite corner.
Yeah, they do. And S0bek started to scout much earlier here. So I don't know if he left the deer back home. So he didn't push all the deer like Vivi's going to. But this is a great map to be the player who doesn't push all the deer here, because I think Vivi is probably going to go towards the middle of the map, and he probably won't know where S0bek is as quickly. Now, there's a lot of guessing involved on this map so maybe he can assume it's going to be a scout opening from the Hindustanis or something. But this should, in theory, be bad for Vivi that he doesn't know what S0bek knows right now.
Yeah, and it's always honestly nice, in my opinion, when we actually see scouting relevant in Age of Empires.
Yeah.
It feels like everyone's just sitting in their bases pushing deer all day. So this could be giving S0bek a little bit of an early opportunity to perhaps guess what his opponent is up to. He sees at least that there's a forward wood line. If he really wants to go forward, he could do that. But most likely it's just going to be for some scouts and maybe adding in a second dock.
Yeah, I mean, and on that topic, just real quick, I know you and I could probably talk about balancing or like just game theory and stuff a lot longer, but a lot of that has to do with there has to be reasons to scout, right? And in the Arabia meta these days, everyone just says, oh, this civ's going to do that, and they adapt to it. And obviously people watch a lot of ranked games, but if you have hybrid maps, if you have 4, 5, 6 different areas you've got to check all the time, it becomes very valuable. And here's Vivi now with the Vil, and like we're talking about scouting, and S0bek just didn't see that Vil. That could be a free villager kill, and really important to know that Vivi's over there.
Yeah, that is going to be something to really keep in mind, as Vivi will be able to go for that second dock without any issue whatsoever. Can just start adding in that little bit of extra fishing eco sooner. Both players picking up double bid-axe. I would not be surprised to see a stable from both players, and indeed there it is for Vivi. So all of this is looking pretty similar, but notably with that faster second dock for red.
Okay, so I think Vivi, because of the direction of the spear, should have an understanding of the direction of his opponent now. He hasn't seen the TC yet. He hasn't seen anything. So a lot of guessing, but that spear coming from the north would make me think, especially since you haven't found the opponent in the east, that the action should be coming that direction. Vivi will be pretty happy he's got the fish going on the left side, but that could be seen as vulnerable too if your opponent's over there and S0bek is close enough. Here he comes with his villager.
Yeah, and we're talking so much about scouting. If Vivi knew a little bit earlier that his opponent was in this general direction, he'd probably go with the galley first so that he could potentially deny a dock to come in the first place. But that's just not something he's going to be able to do. And instead, they're going to have to just fight for water with maybe a bit of a wasted fishing ship, depending on if he can protect it.
Yeah, now that gold and even the other gold to the left side here for Vivi, those are not areas that are going to be easy to lock down. So usually you have a little bit more time to ease into a game, but you have 30 seconds less protection between when your opponent makes a unit and when it gets to you compared to a normal map. So I'm curious, will we see an early tower? Could he consider taking the back gold too? These are all things Vivi's got to think about.
Well, it is going to be the forward gold for now, so just has to be confident in his unit control to make sure he doesn't get snowballed early on. Spearmen are just running around in the back, not doing a whole lot. But notably, both players are making fishing ships in the west, so we have a nice, happy, cooperative fishing environment.
Yep, there is the Vil going over to the east now as well. So Vivi's going to try and get docks on 3 ponds, and I gotta say, Vivi has had a really smooth game. So is S0bek, but usually you just kind of expect that the player who scouts the other, who gets the early numbers, who is up against Huns, where Huns can't panic and house wall. Usually those players are able to find a little bit more damage than this, but Vivi's just looking super comfortable here so far.
Yeah, plenty experienced, of course. He's just now getting the defensive archery range. Those early walls on the forward wood line were definitely important. Just bought him just that little bit of extra time he needed. Hun faster working stables helps you get those numbers going a bit faster. And now look at this, all the way on the other side of the map, gonna get a villager.
Yeah, pretty crazy, right? Like S0bek looks like he's walled. He's been focused on the aggression. I just think it's so crazy that Vivi ran forward in the first place. If you think of some of the other sets we've seen today, how many times do players not move out until they're completely walled? But Vivi's like, nope, that'll take me forever. I've got to do something. I've got to control this game. And so the scouts that could have been a problem are now chasing his own scouts. He snipes the Vil, and they're going to meet each other with fire galleys on the left side. So great opening for Vivi, but losing one Vil as the Hindustanis isn't the worst. They're cheap. You can replace them.
Sounds like somebody who doesn't care about the lives of his peasants, man.
No, I've been conditioned to get used to losing villagers. That's all that happens.
I can certainly attest to that as well, so that's a bit unfortunate. And there's a hole. Why is it when there's always a hole when I'm casting with you?
Yeah, I think it was the same spot, actually, as before. Oftentimes you're expecting him to close that up, and man, Vivi, look at the follow-up, Orlu. He's got a range with archers already, so the Huns can just spam that army. They save so much wood, which helps. He's up to soon 12 fishing ships as well. This has been an exceptional game from Vivi, who, again, needs 1 win, and he's up to platinum for the next season.
Yeah, exactly. And what I think underlooked when talking about Vivi is it's not just, oh, the wild strats, the crazy forwards, like all that stuff. It's the fact that he is willing to just sort of take that proactive move, try and force a fight. When you see people these days end up so passive and unwilling to take those, I guess, big decisive moments, Vivi is just out there going to punch you in the face, and I love to see that.
Yeah, I agree. And Vivi's also a numbers first, microsecond type of guy, right? Whereas other people are gonna try and get as much value from low numbers of units. This is truly unbelievable, by the way. S0bek is second place in a really competitive group. I didn't have time to talk about how impressed I am with his last couple years as a player. But Vivi's just sending it right now. Like, this much army could end the game once the stable's down. Could just be game ending.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be losing critical production. You'd be getting a huge hole in the front of your base. Those forage bushes would be getting denied. I mean, trying to rush up a second range and a blacksmith all at once. This is a very uncomfortable position here for S0bek. He's already falling behind in resources, too. So, I mean, we can't say enough to how decisive and how well executed this start is from Vivi.
Yeah, really smooth. Bloodlines is already in. Forging is already in. And the army for S0bek is split up. So he's going double range from inside here. The stable is being repaired, actually. Vivi's not attacking the repairville yet. But it's a tough situation for S0bek. If he had a gate, maybe he could run in and group up all of his army together. But he is getting some nice value from the archers, though. And the stable didn't go down yet. He saves the Vil. But now I think the stable goes down.
Yeah, and it looks like S0bek has done quite nice in the west of the map. Was able to take down 3 fishing ships, I think.
Yeah.
And destroy some fire galleys. So in some theaters of the war, things are going better for S0bek. But of course, the most important one is the one right in your face. And right now, Vivi, I love how decisive this is.
It's crazy. I mean, I feel like ever since he's had the stable, it's produced scouts nonstop. The range as well, archers nonstop. And S0bek he just can't.
Wow.
He just had no chance there. That was crazy. We have not seen cross games end in feudal age this season. That was ridiculous.
Vivi's like, hello, this is the part where you die.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Vivi confirms he's up to platinum, and it would be so good to see him amongst the top again. We have more time to talk about that, but the games still have to happen, and if S0bek wants to be confirmed for playoffs, I think he at least needs 1 win, because there's chances he could not get playoffs. So I was thinking, okay, S0bek's going to get a win, because I thought they're pretty close. But after seeing that, I'm just like, not so sure.
Well, we'll see. I mean, sometimes there are games where you just fall behind early and then you get bopped, and I think the close spawn positions definitely favors Vivi and his more aggressive style. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't inspire confidence, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, S0bek's going to need to turn it around, probably go for a map that's slightly less land-focused, and he has it.
We have another one here that we have to finish. Of course, this still matters a lot for S0bek, right? Every single win is going to be helping his chances to at least get second place, which I don't think we've mentioned yet. Means that you don't have to face Mihai in the decider set, which, I don't know, feels pretty good to me.
Yeah, so your second, you play Prisma, who is, of course, a talented player, but I think Mihai is a step up from him. He's had a couple years now where he's been waiting to break into plat. Though, of course, Prisma's no slouch. So, Italians here, game 2. For S0bek, we've got the Malay for Vivi on Pacific Islands. And like I just said, this map has been banned a ton. It is not easy to play. And it's basically like migration times 2. Because you have to migrate, but there's 2 different areas to migrate. But also, while you need the Navy control, you also don't gain as much from Navy control economically. Because there's not as much fish. So, it's a tricky balance.
Yeah, and of course, you go to the middle earlier. You have no reason not to because you start with that transport ship, unlike migration. You have even fewer resources on your starting island than on migration. So it definitely plays out a little bit differently, but I like it. It's a nice mix-up from migration.
Yeah, I like it too. I am in love with migration as well, but we couldn't repeat it, and it feels like there's been a lot of migration recently. So.
There's been a lot of migration.
Vivi does have kind of an unfortunate situation, so there's no deep fish that he has scouted so far. And even though there's few on this map, you usually find it with your transport. So if he travels a little bit further, he'll find one. And that would be fine dock locations on the other side, but hasn't found one yet. And now he sees one. So that's good enough for the start. He'll find another one. Just kind of got concerned from a map balance standpoint.
Somewhere T West is casting Walhalla and is sweating and he doesn't know why.
Yeah, true. It's definitely funny though. This map would be significantly worse without the transport ship start, in my opinion, because
you're so much more of a crapshoot in terms of where you put your first dock.
Yep, exactly. We'd have to balance the entire map differently if they didn't have the transport. And also, strategies would change too. Like the fact that we're seeing a lot of players bring 5 Vils to lumber camp or mill the middle area in early feudal, that just wouldn't happen otherwise. People wouldn't spend the wood on that. They would spend the wood on a dock. They'd spend the wood on Navy. It'd become like this full Navy fest where there's no fish. It would just be a worse map.
Yeah. Then that would remind me more of Bog Islands, right? Where you have to have this huge navy, but there really aren't that many fish to fight over, so it just ends up being kind of awkward. But this is much more of the true hybrid. You need to fight for both land and water. But unlike a lot of hybrid maps, water is really valuable in late game, which I'm a big fan of.
So would you prefer a particular civilization here, or is it pretty much even? These two are pretty high up there on the tier list for water maps.
I mean, when it comes to like good water civs, I kind of am like, they're both fine. They both have strong economies. They both have strong timings. They have the exact same dock tech tree.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine.
Yeah. It depends ever so slightly how you use the bonuses. Malay advance faster. Italians, it's cheaper. One's got cheaper fishing ships. One's got like a stronger docks. You could go down the list. And yeah, just a small observation here. Now, I think it's absolutely a massive extreme for one or two people to have said S0bek is dead because of this, but it is true that his island is not landlocked to the edge.
Yes.
I actually think that can benefit him because he could be sneaky and dock the back and keep those fish safe. I've seen examples of that. But in theory, if he gets surrounded on water, he will be surrounded everywhere.
Newsflash. If you're surrounded, you're surrounded. T90 2025.
Come on, you knew what I meant though. Like, like Vivi's not quite as surrounded. There'd be Vivi could fit 2 houses that might not be able to be ranged by ships. So that's a pretty big difference.
I gotta take the few little teases when I can get them. I'm sorry.
It's all good. Also, pretty crazy. S0bek, I don't know if this means he's been less active. I actually think, if anything, he has been active, but he hasn't been playing ladder as much because he's got limited time. But S0bek's below 2,400 elo at the moment, which is pretty wild. Vivi's elo feels like consistently above 2,700 elo, but there's a difference. I think Vivi's full-time AoE and is always playing, and S0bek is playing less. And these days, people who are playing in tournaments like this are spending their time not on ladder. They're playing practice sets and whatnot.
Yeah, it's always a very difficult balance in terms of just how you spend your time with AoE if you are not full-time AoE.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it's always so impressive to me when people do find success without being full-time. Because, like, I can barely find the time to play ladder games. And it's like, I think, always impresses me.
I think the toughest part has to just be energy levels. Right? Like competing at a high level with low energy. Hold on. Is there a deer stuck in a tree on that wood line for S0bek? Did the tree fall on it? Oh, it's just stuck in there. I think it can leave, but it's surrounded.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's weird. It looks like it's in the tree, but I think it's just the pathing is blocked. I can't tell.
Yeah, that is really weird.
Be
free!
It's trying to leave right now, but I guess... Oh, it moved a little bit more.
Okay.
I guess once the tree is chopped, everything will be fine.
Until it's killed.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, that might be better than the trauma it's experiencing right now. So, who knows? Lumber camp's on opposite sides here. Scout is active from Vivi, and Vivi will snipe the Vil from S0bek with the scout. So use the transport, brought the scout, sniped the villager. Talk about finding some damage.
Just being active with your units, making sure that you're not just sort of hanging around, not doing anything. And I mean, hey, you'll take any early villager kill you can. And Vivi is going to be prioritizing the early galley play from 2 docks here, whereas S0bek already has the barracks out, but the barracks isn't likely going to do a whole lot, whereas the galleys probably are.
Is it worth it right now for S0bek to use that transport and bring Vils over? Because if he makes archers from this island, he can't really do too much with that. I don't know. He was thinking about the archer range opening. That's why he dropped that barracks. And now he sent his scout over, and we'll see Vivi's going for the tower. I like the approach from Vivi. If you're going galleys, you don't want any other distractions. And this is the only area of your economy that's exposed right now.
Absolutely. You have and Vivi saw the barracks too, which I really like. So as soon as you see the barracks, you get that confirmation that your opponent is himself not going for 2 galleys.
Yep.
So go for your own defensive watchtower. Just make sure that you are, reducing the risk of your villagers, and then you're going to have a much easier time actually pressuring the water eco of your opponent.
I also like that Vivi's opened with galleys and is now going to go for 2 fires because the fires will destroy the docks a little bit faster. And I do think if you open galleys, if you commit to too many galleys, you could never switch out of them. But 4 is enough to get an edge and could just use the fires to destroy the buildings later on. Key moment for me is that transport for S0bek. If he loses that, the archers he's producing get no value. But if he can transport those archers anywhere, including the starting island for Vivi, Vivi doesn't really have defense for that prepared, except for that 1 tower.
Yeah, and of course none on his own starting island, so that's something that we've seen players find success with on this map in the past, and you are absolutely right that it is just going to come down to keeping that transport nice and safe. But I actually need to clarify something. Are fire ships really faster at killing docks than galleys are? Because I'm pretty sure, I thought galleys were faster.
I mean, I'm thinking about it in terms of numbers. Fires have to be way faster, right? Like, if it's 2 fires versus 2 galleys, the fires destroy docks faster than 2 galleys, right?
I thought it was the other way around, but...
What? No way. That would blow me away.
I am absolutely prepared to be wrong on this, but, like, I thought I tested it in the past, but now I'm doubting myself.
Well, I mean, I'm honestly not going on stats here. I'm just going on experience. And so in my experience, the fires are superior there, but maybe someone could help us out?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I am all ready to be wrong.
Okay.
Anyway, the first fire ship there from S0bek is going to be taken down by one of the fires here for Vivi. And overall Navy numbers just favoring our red player. And as we keep saying, here come the archers.
Yep.
You know where your opponent's Navy is, at least some of it, as S0bek, so you need to find that damage.
Yeah, Vivi sees it. The Malay docks combined with the tower gave him a lot of vision. But this is the key for the archers. And so here he goes. Now, Vivi already made a tower in his other area, so you would think that he wouldn't be able to make another one, but he actually was walking back and forth mining stone. Man, this is such amazing prep from Vivi. In the past, I've been really critical of him not being prepared, but he knew that eventually archers could make it through and preemptively mine the stone, and so his gold will be towered. He walls that up. This is still could potentially be annoying from him, but that's really impressive prep for me.
Yeah, but you have the transport ship just bop right around, and you'll be able to apply a lot more pressure, but instead, S0bek is going to be walking in the other direction. He does not know about the watchtower.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also hard for S0bek to move around because there is Navy around, too. So he's hiding that transport. S0bek is up, though. Great uptime from S0bek. Also, didn't use the market here. He added farms. He took the deer we talked about. And he hasn't lost water control. He still has a dock. So the archers might not have gotten any kills, but they've forced reactions. Maybe they've slowed down Vivi ever so slightly. And if S0bek can get the War Galley upgrade, those fires could be much stronger, and he could completely win water because of it.
Yeah. Still, the uptimes are going to be very comparable thanks to the power of Malay.
Yeah.
Nice job going to be delaying another dock there from Vivi as S0bek. Still, I'm getting a bit concerned about the resources difference being in favor of the Malay player, who are just going to be better economically than our Italians.
Yeah.
So it still feels like the onus is on S0bek to do something.
I agree. I think the nice thing, though, is if you're patient with those archers, they should force some type of reaction. Because you can't have these 3 archers denying the woodlines long term. So there's a stable from Vivi. That may be for an elephant. He also dropped a stable on the island he's on as well. So double stable for Vivi in 2 different spots. Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's interesting because elephants are generally what you want, but here we are. We're talking about the transport ship. It has been surrounded and will be probably soon killed. Just drag it out and eventually you'll be right.
But think about the situation right now. Is S0bek, I think he needs to conserve his mass, but S0bek will have archers on 2 of the islands Vivi's taking resources, the only areas he's at, and he's dropping a TC in an area that's pretty safe. So I think the key for me is actually the fires now, even more so than the crossbows. But he wasn't expecting Vivi to go for this. Vivi adds a knight, clears up those 3 crossbows, and Vivi will have 2 more knights to clear up the other group of crossbows. That was a big investment for me. Going for crossbow and bodkin when you only had 7 units and skipping the War Galley upgrade. Kind of a question mark.
I mean, you're Italian, so you have a cheaper war galley upgrade. You could still afford it, but right now, look at this. Using both the knights and the galleys, or at least attempting to do so. And with that +1 defense, it's going to be all you need to ensure that the knights are going to get a win, I think.
Should be. S0bek's micring pretty nicely, though. Vivi did save the other weak knight, and the knight here is not following, and gets the hill, and gets the kill. Nice. Well,
that was close, though.
I love the forward dock from S0bek. That puts a lot of pressure on any potential fish for the Malay, and also it's always that next move you can use to surprise Vivi now. So Vivi's got to respect that a lot. It's not like the Navy's going to be coming through that choke point in the center, which was happening before. But we have ourselves a boomy game. It'll be 3 TCs for S0bek. Probably eventually 3 TCs for Vivi, but he's just on 2 right now with the water control.
But he's still ahead in resources. He still even has a few fishing ships left, so this is still totally fine for Vivi to be a little bit later in that uptime. Fire ships are out, so like you were saying, S0bek did grab that war galley upgrade. Vivi has not done so just yet. Yeah, the 2 fire ships are coming around the right side, and they kind of need to all group up so we can take a good decisive fight.
Yeah, and pretty soon Vivi could have war galley. So I think that this could get worse for S0bek. The score's not looking too great for him. He got dominated the first game. He needs some engagements to believe right now. And I told myself I wasn't really going to look at the potential and the stats too much for this series because it was all about the last one, but with the way this game is going, with the way the series could go, I kind of want to check. Maybe someone could tell me what could happen to S0bek if he gets 3-0'd here, because Vivi's looking good.
He is looking mighty strong, that's for sure. This is S0bek's home map, so this is one where you'd really expect to win if you are S0bek. And now Vivi landing on the opposing island with an elephant and a knight.
Wow.
Need to rush up a monastery to try and deal with that.
Wow, that's crazy. So while Vivi's doing that, though, S0bek came in from the other side on water and killed all the fish, except for maybe one of them. And he's cleared up the navy that Vivi had. So this is completely flipped. Vivi does have a couple galleys, but those fires should be able to find them and kill them. And that's a lot of the reason Vivi has score.
Oh, he can just send the fire ships back in the other direction to trap those galleys in this channel between the 2 islands. So the galley's not even going to be able to micro away very effectively. And this game is getting pretty messy, which is what we like to see here on Pacific Islands.
Yep. Knight dove underneath the TC, went down. Elephant will do the same and get a kill. S0bek, lots of idle time here, but he should be able to convert that elephant. I think Vivi will probably ultimately end up deleting this. But there's a lot happening. Villager dies. Elephant deleted.
Oh, tragic for the elephant. Gets the villager kill and is rewarded by death.
Don't you hate that? I hate it when that happens. Well,
don't you hate when you do what your boss tells you and then they kill you?
Yeah, exactly. This is why you should never trust your employer, guys. All right? Don't have loyalty.
Exactly. I do like that both players are starting to pick up relics, though, as well. Always something that you need to be prepared for, as games on this map can be kind of stalematey if both players control one of the central islands.
This has been a great game. This is why Pacific Islands is awesome, by the way. We have seen everything. We've seen sneak archers. We've seen sneak knights and elephants. We've seen fires. We've seen galleys. But this is also why, and back to my point, like, this is why people banned the crap out of this map, too, because it's so much to manage. And so many things can go wrong for you here.
Yeah, and it's, pro players generally don't like the maps that are a bit more multitasking or not meta, I guess we could say.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of do these different things, and you have to adapt. But this is why sometimes, we can force players to play these weirder maps. They just have to live with it.
It feels like if Vivi had water control still, he might have transported the castle and dropped it. But now he's in this weird spot where he doesn't have the ability to transport easily. Oh, God. Transport. S0bek.
Oh.
Dude, there were 3 monks and a scout in there. Oh.
Oh, and Vivi's going back in the direction of the fire. Like, hey, you missed something, S0bek.
Yeah, and this could be good for Vivi, though, right? Like, 3 monks could convert vills. Then you could build buildings here. Then there's also a light cav when you know your opponent's only defending with monks.
need to delete that. You don't want to convert, let a knight get converted in, and that will be deleted in time. But this is definitely a bit more awkward than you'd like. You have to be really careful about that light cap sniping your own monks, as S0bek does have a couple over here.
No way.
But,
No way. No way. There's 6 fires for S0bek. He's on the docks, right? He's patrolling around elsewhere, but he has not been able to protect the middle. And, oh, man, hold on. Lightcap got converted.
Only one monk is trying to convert it. Sanctity is in. Healing the monk, but that...
He deleted...
This shouldn't be happening, T90.
Yeah, I agree. This castle going up from Vivi is crazy. Because there's fire ships around, but the fire ships are just not in this position. We missed that one fire, or he missed controlling that one fire to patrol, and Vivi's castle will be on the TC. Vivi's islands are now completely safe. And who cares? If you don't have water control from this position, who cares if you can just use land now and make trebuchets from this castle?
And he indeed clicks up to Imperial Age. That is Vivi. Going to be there really quick with Malay. Karambits are kind of like the Southeast Asian version of condos. You can just run them around and already cause a lot of havoc in your opponent's eco.
That is so Vivi. Like this, this game has been so Vivi. Sneaking a couple knights, casually just triple transporting across there. A lot of players, when they see the fire initially, are not going to try it again because they're scared of it. Vivi's like, nope, I think I can get away with it. And I really struggle to see what S0bek's going to be able to do from here once the first Treb comes out. This is going to be brutal.
Oh, and he's building a castle there, but he doesn't realize there is going to be a large Imperial Age timing discrepancy. And yeah, this is already going to be looking pretty brutal here for our blue player.
Yeah, I mean, castle could go up, but there's a second castle now from Vivi. Vivi's like, I am platinum. Get me out of this gold league. Yikes. And yeah, chances are, I don't know the percentages, but if S0bek gets swept, he could be out of the playoffs, which he's been in line for the entire season.
Yeah, I mean, but this is what happens when the your toughest opponent is last. Sometimes stuff like this happens.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And yikes.
Just dominant from Vivi. He just seemed... I just see so much flow to his game and so much confidence, right? Like, he just doesn't seem... It might just be because of the matchup that he's had before. They did play in the same group, actually, in Platinum, funnily enough. And I don't recall exactly how that series went. But man, Vivi came out today, and he's just absolutely gone for it. S0bek will be frustrated. You're supposed to have time there. When you have the water control and you're Italians, the faster imp shouldn't be an issue unless he transports to your island. If he transports to your island, then fast imp is an issue with the Trebs. Brutal.
Yeah, that is pretty brutal. Of course, just the enormous eco lead there for Vivi from Malay, from just getting the early fishing ship advantage. It just absolutely did snowball out of control and just so well played and so decisive, as you're saying, getting that transport over.
I thought it was a really good game from S0bek, too, honestly. That was really well played.
Bad, yeah.
I just think that the thing he'll regret is not keeping track of that transport. If that transport was blocked, then it's a different situation. And we probably go to Imp and Galleons and Shipwright and just crazy amounts of Navy. But we don't get there. So, and game number 3. So, S0bek needs a win for playoffs. No guarantee of playoffs if he loses this. And we've got Vivi with the Byzantines. Dude, Vivi with the Byzantines, with how he's been playing. This just... Chinese are great, but Vivi's not going to make this easy for S0bek.
I have visions of lots of spearmen and skirmishers from forward buildings. I'm just getting nightmares to my young latter days on Voobly when I ran into this from the Chinese players.
Oh, man. I mean, there's nothing worse. Like, it really tells you how crazy and addicted we are to this game that we stuck around through all that, right? 400 ping, 7 tile hills all over the map. Woodlines could... Your sheep would generate in like the woodline ponds. And then you have someone stealing your boar and coming forward and dropping triple archery range, double barracks, towers. Like, oh man, dude, that was rough. And Vivi's to blame. Vivi's the one who inspired them all.
Oh, just getting a PTSD right there.
Do you have any players that you remember that did crazy stuff against you back in the old days, like back in the Voobly days?
I mean, a lot of the Chinese players had Chinese names, so.
Okay. Well, so I have a memory of this one player from Vietnam who I used to play Hun Wars against. It would have been 2016, 2017. He was around like 17 or 1800. And his name was Candy. It was Candy VN. I know his profile. He doesn't play on Voobly anymore. And every game was the same. He would always immediately try and lame and steal a boar. And then he would go fast feudal. And he would go full Stonewall. And try and go up to Castle Age for CA. And I remember it was like... Because back then you had lobbies. So if you play a guy and you didn't like playing him, you just never join his lobby again. But a lot of times, if you had a bit of a rivalry going, you just play them back to back to back to back to back. And I swear, like every evening for weeks, it was just back and forth. I'd try and not get lamed. I'd try and break him before he stonewalled. And then if he got the walls down, he'd kill me with CA. It was just nonstop. Great memories, but also just horrible memories at the same time.
I mean, that's even like not even Vivi style. That's Tim style from back in the day.
True.
Like. Just full lame Stonewalls Cav Archers.
Yeah, and back then, guys, walls were built a lot faster. And Cav Archers for Huns were a lot cheaper. So I even think walls were cheaper, actually. I forget if they increased the price.
Palisades were cheaper. Stonewalls were always 5 stone.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So, yeah, lots of memories. I could go on about that. But, yeah, Chinese have dominated this tournament. They've looked so good. And in Gold League, there's only 2 bans for both, so they've squeaked through the draft a little bit more. But Chinese need a clean game. They ideally have a Scout opening. They ideally transition from there. And Vivi kind of patented his forward style back in the day. So I'm curious. You expected the forward buildings, but a lot of people, when they play Byzantine, still build their buildings as part of their wall on the front. So I guess we'll find out what he chooses to do, because if you don't build any walls on the front, it could at least be awkward to defend from counter armies.
Well, and this is where the very short rush distance of the map comes in. You can sort of integrate the the barracks and artillery range as part of your wall and still not have that far to walk before you can get to your opponent's own impossible to fully wall base. So
yeah.
It does make Chinese maybe a little bit riskier because, as you're saying, I mean, they just love having these clean passive games that are all the rage with players not named Vivi.
Yep. Reminder, though, guys, you cannot wall on or build on the rock terrain. So the lumber camps are kind of inefficient. Eventually, when you chop enough trees, you can build one that is efficient. And then a small thing, but it does play a role. Also, eventually, if you keep refreshing there, you can actually chop a separate avenue to the golden stone.
Yeah, and we actually see that pretty often once this gets to a later stage of the game. That can help you sort of sneak access to the golden stones that are kind of in like the corners of the middle, and that can be all the difference in terms of you just having enough resources to get by.
Did I ever tell you about the time that I beat Vivi and felt good about myself? Did I ever tell you that story? It's real.
Was that like the time that Nilly beat Vivi when he didn't research Loom the whole game?
No, well, even worse somehow. So I was like 2K, and I played him, and I was like full sweat lord, right? I did like my best at everything, and then I win the game. I feel like I'm a god, and then someone tells me Vivi didn't take 4 of his sheep, and so I rewatched the recorded game, and Vivi put his sheep in the corner like he didn't want them. And then I made it even worse for myself, and I rewatched Vivi's VOD. I rewatched his stream, and he didn't use his second hand until the 12th minute. He was smoking. So he was laughing and smoking. He put his sheep in the corner. He's played with one hand, pretty much only his mouse, as he's smoking a cigarette. And then me on the other side, I was like super uber focused. I felt so good, and then I just felt like a piece of crap afterwards.
Oh, that's pretty heartbreaking, man.
Yep, that's Vivi, dude. That's Vivi.
Yeah. That's why we love him, though.
Stable for S0bek. I was wondering if he would actually do that, because a lot of people these days are going and matching the skirms from the Byzantines. But I like this. You have some offensive presence, and then he also drops the range to still go for some skirms. And he also scouts exactly what Vivi's opening with, which we expected would be the archery range.
Yeah, and I honestly really like this from S0bek because it always tilts me when players do the same thing as their opponent, but at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And so S0bek, lean into the strength of his Civ, use those extra early resources he has from, that eco lead, and then he's able to start getting those farms down, and start getting those better scouts out.
Yep, I agree. Really smart. I also think this is a trend that started because you can't wall on the rocks. You just have like a unit blocking it, so he has a spear there. And then he's walling to the edge of the map. So actually, if Vivi comes through, he can't easily access any of the long-term critical resources. The farms will be the food, the wood will be towered, and the gold's right behind that. So that's a good setup for S0bek.
Yeah, and I like how the spearman is literally just standing guard. None shall pass, even though his opponent's army is mostly units that can kill the spearman pretty fast.
Right. Well, we haven't seen mule carts being used there, but you can actually use a mule cart to block units from going through there. So maybe we'll see that in the playoffs or something. Maybe someone thinks that's really strong.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I mean, I've seen it done on Land Madness. I actually did it on Land Madness in a 2v1 I played against Hera with T West. And Hera tried to rush me, but I just went full palisade walls as Armenians and just blocked all the gaps.
Nice. I like that, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, especially you need a bit of an edge against Hera, so.
Well, it was still 2v1, so we had to start with I think it was a minute 45 where he just wasn't doing anything.
Okay,
but,
got it.
It was still actually a very competitive series.
I think Villager for S0bek could die. Yep, does go down. So that's a good start there for Vivi. But if you lose one Villas, the Chinese, I think you're still pretty happy. If you lose 2 or 3, that's where you start to worry. But Vivi's just building non-stop skirms and spears. He's got so many. And if he can get all of this army over to S0bek's base, S0bek does not have an answer for this.
Not at all, but you would still have to find a way to force an engagement at S0bek's base. Right now, the forage bushes are the obvious sort of weak point, but they're not going to be around for all that much longer. So Vivi realizes that now is the hour, and the scouts are going to see what's going on, and he may have to pull those vills.
I feel like Vivi of old would actually bring 4 vills with this and start a tower rush. I feel like it could be super strong to just use the spears and skirms to secure the position and then drop a tower next to the range. Because it would delay the berries, the farms, and your opponent can't counter tower.
Yeah, I mean, this is back when players realized that it wasn't really the best idea to tower the stone, it was the best idea to tower the food right away, because that would just gimp your opponent's early eco.
Yep.
And getting those transitions down, and that, you're of course right on with that. Just getting all those food resources denied at once wouldn't be bad.
How many times do we see Chinese at this stage? They've only lost 1 Vill, but they're ahead by 500 or 600 resources collected. Look at it right now. It's pretty much even. And Vivi's going to attack the farms. Farmers cannot work on their farm if it's being attacked. They will, if they're being attacked, they'll still work. But if the farm is being attacked, they'll stop. So that's annoying. And Vivi looking pretty
the Farmers
comfortable.
Union was able to push that law through, where you don't have to work on an active war zone.
Yeah, they'll build a castle when there's crossbows, but they'll stop working on the farm the second it gets attacked. So basically, guys, if anyone's ever if they have no army and you, let's say, have 3 leftover skirms, you could just click a skirm to each farm, and those 3 farms are idled. So at this level, people are doing that when people undermake army, and it's actually really smart.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a nice way that you can sort of use all of your units to get at least some value out of them, and that's what we see, a lot of these really top players do. And now the fight is actually unfolding, but of course the Scout Skirm army should be superior, as those spearmen definitely sort of the glass cannon of the feudal age army.
Yeah, S0bek did a really nice job here. I think the best thing that he did, as he'll inevitably clear this, was actually just boxing Vivi out. Vivi went a little bit too far there, so he was never able to back up to the rest of his army and combine the two. And he knew, I'm not going to let Vivi escape. So Vivi's skirms and spears at home are just kind of all he has. And market going up for Vivi, I think he'll try and click up to castle. But now maybe there could be a bit of a counterattack for S0bek.
Yeah, he has a bit of an opportunity here. That said, the fact that Vivi as Byzantines is a little bit closer in terms of Castle Age resources is enormous. That said, Sobek still has plenty of farm, so it's at least going to be a competitive Castle Age time, but there's still going to be opportunity for Vivi to leverage those cheap counter units.
Yeah, let's see. I think, yeah, any other civ, you have to make more spears right now. You're annoyed with yourself. Here with Byzantines, it's whatever. Not a big deal. And Vivi still has good skirms on the front. Gets the pick off. The skirms are the threat to his spears, so that's what he'll go for. And just another beautiful snipe from Vivi. It seems like the comfort zone for Byzantines, the comfort zone for Vivi. But how much of this is just my brain telling me Vivi won the first 2 games? Because Sobek's up, Sobek's Chinese, and he only lost 1 vill.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right, but I still see Chinese with any sort of villager resource disadvantage to Byzantines, and I'm saying, Byzantines are probably really happy with how the game has been going.
Yeah, agreed.
But it's certainly far from over, so, I mean, there's plenty of opportunity here for both players.
It's so nice when your opponent goes spears and skirms against you. It ends up in a heavy skirm battle, and then you just go for cheap cheap camels to match it. Just beautiful game from Vivi. Didn't have to build a tower, so can just boom it out. And maybe the focus shifts now. It doesn't become, let's attack the Chinese and kill the Chinese. It's, now we play defensive, and the Chinese have to kill Byzantines.
And that is going to be very tough to do. Byzantines, of course, one of the primo defensive civs out there. You still need to make it to the middle, though.
Yeah.
But I suppose you can kind of hang back a bit if you're Vivi until you're chopping through to the middle, like you were talking about earlier, and then you can, like, drop a castle to secure those extra resources.
Yeah, let's see. Ideal TC spots. You can't TC the wood line unless you TC on the grass terrain and use the lumber camps for the wood. You could TC the stone right there where the skirms are, and then maybe also TC the gold. So yeah, I can see some TCs feeling pretty realistic for this position. But also maybe with the amount of army he has, he walks to the middle right now, and you just TC the middle where the gold is. You just kind of block it all off. I don't know.
Well, however this is going to shake out, both players are hitting Castle Age with a decent amount of resources in the bank. Notably, only 100 stone right now for S0bek and no market, so he can only add 1 TC. But he's going to pick up Bowsaw and get a couple of camels. Meanwhile, Vivi Monastery, second stable coming in, and some more camels for him.
Yeah, so it's going to be a camel war. That's an interesting TC. I don't hate it. It is on the wood line. It is close to the flank of your base, but I wasn't expecting that one. But he doesn't really need a lot of gold right now, so more villagers on gold wouldn't necessarily click. So, 2 TCs for both. Camel War. Still thinking, though, this is good for Byzantines.
Yeah.
Camel War is like, the Chinese want to be killing with crossbows and knights. They want to have this massive lead at this stage. Vivi's just played so well.
You know, maybe S0bek thinks he's going to be, the Tonguts or, one of the new Chinese civs that could have the camel trebuchets, and he thinks he has better camels than he does.
Yeah, I'm a little scared of some of those units that I saw pictures of. I don't know what I was looking at there, but we'll see.
Yeah. It'll be interesting for sure.
The camels are stronger for the Chinese. But I can't help but feel like the additional skirms actually make up the difference. So Bloodlines is there for Chinese. That's an extra 20 HP. And these skirms are just chipping away at that extra 20 HP. These camels should be fairly even in engagements as long as those skirms are there.
And it's just the fact that camels with no native pierce armor, they still take 4 damage a hit from those skirmishers right now. And, it's not, like, amazing, but it can certainly be enough to turn the tide in an otherwise pretty even fight. And Vivi really able to leverage that to get good map positioning.
Yep, not too much going on the outside. Just a bear doing what bears do. And a spearman doing exactly what I would do. And running away. And maybe dying. But Vivi's just now dropping TC number 3. But so is S0bek. S0bek a little bit faster. They're both placing their TCs on the stone. So we'll pay attention to how much stone they mine. The more we see villagers go to stone, obviously that means a castle. But like that's actually pretty critical to pay attention to here. Because what you really want is you want food and gold eco for more camel production and more upgrades. And if you have 10% of your eco, 20% of your eco on stone, that's going to take away from the potential map control for the castle.
Very true, but once the castle goes down, especially for Chinese, you can start to mix in some Chukonu. And Camel plus Chukonu sounds like a very tough army composition to start to deal with, as the skirmishers are going to struggle to get in range of the Chukonu if there are camels in the front.
Would you say that that's good enough where you don't actually place your castle in the middle and you place it defensively just for Chukunu production? Or is it not... Is it that not that clearly the focus for Chinese?
I think that's a very interesting question, and I think it might be one of those things that there isn't a correct answer to. It's just about how you can manage it. Like, personally, I would want to start Chukonu production just because it's a unit I feel like you can rely on versus Byzantines. But, I mean, I can understand really trying to prioritize map control. So I think it can work both ways.
I would love to see... It feels very unnatural with the amount of cav that's out right now, but when it's camels and not knights, I would actually like to see some siege mixed in. Like, even if it's knights, like, if you're behind, right, 2 or 3 attack rounds, and the whole army of knights would get wiped. So I'm just thinking, like, I guess you could go for upgrades on camels, go for that, but feels like S0bek needs a little bit more than what he's showing me at the moment.
Yeah, there's definitely a very old clip on my stream somewhere that is me losing like 30 hussars to onagers just because I'm like, they're cavalry. They're not going to be good against onagers, and I just lose everything in one hit.
Yeah, and you also might want something before it becomes a combination of pikes as well. You see Vivi, Siege Workshop, but I see a couple spears in queue. So more cheap counter units are coming. You need something to take care of the monks. You need something to take care of the skirms. That's actually a really nice engagement for S0bek. But Vivi can just heal up all that damage if he wants. And both might get conversions, but the skirms will kill the monks. S0bek will lose all of his monks.
And those Byzantine monks, faster healing is honestly a really nice bonus in these longer developing fights. You know, camels not killing each other that fast, and this should be a huge win here for Vivi.
Yeah, I think S0bek's just hoping that +2 armor makes a difference, but with camels, it doesn't. Like, the skirms are doing so much damage here. The skirms have made all the difference. And the conversions, the ability to convert in the future, heal up with those monks, all of this pointing Vivi's direction. The Vil count is even. This is what Vivi wanted. He wanted to be even with the Chinese at this stage of the game. And if you're even with the Chinese, if you're even with anyone as Byzantines at this stage, you're laughing. And that just felt so forced for S0bek. He just thought that would go better than it did.
Yeah, and it's really tough because it's such a hard decision to make in the moment. Like, is this a fight I'm going to win, or is this a fight I'm going to lose horribly, right? And when you're in these not super common situations of, like, camels versus slightly worse camels, but some skirms there, and sometimes it's just one not quite good enough decision in the moment can make all the difference. And right now, both players have the resources for a castle.
Yeah, I mean, only one player is going to be able to place one in the middle. I wonder... Yeah, I was wondering how aggressive it would be. Vivi could be kind of a troller boy sometimes when he knows he's winning. I've seen some pretty wild stuff. Like, one time, I think the start of groups, he was way ahead. His opponent didn't resign, and he sold off everything, so he had 15k gold in the bank. It's not quite at that territory, but I thought maybe we would see a super forward castle here, but S0bek has to stop this, and there's no way he stops that. This is just a repeat of the previous situation.
This is not going to be very pleasant. There's just too many camels being reinforced too quickly here by our red player. The skirmisher is still standing tall in the back, able to lay down that damage, and this is just going all the way here of S0bek. There's one opportunity perhaps as a faster Imperial Age, but that's not even very easy to pull off versus Byzantines, as Vivi's about ready to click up himself.
I didn't cast all the other Vivi sets. I watched, which is a little bit different. I'm not quite as connected to it. But this, honestly, has been one of the cleanest sets I've seen from Vivi in a long time. And maybe one of the cleaner sets of this whole season. This is crazy. Just like the perfect ratios on everything. To go for the 4 TC now, because you can still do that and still have your second castle stone, which some people don't get right. To get by with minimal upgrades. He didn't rush ballistics. He didn't rush armor or whatever. He's never been panicked. The outposting on the sides in the south, like, what more could Vivi do to play a perfect game? I don't really know, honestly.
It's really hard to argue, and Vivi's been kind of interesting recently because he's been playing at quite a high level, but like it's really hard to break into like the top level of tournaments these days. He's been like a game off here and a game off there, but clearly here in this more long format TTL, which, by the way, I absolutely really appreciate that you do for the AoE scene, by the way. I think it's just really good for these players to get that more long format they can really sort of grind out and, you know, try and become the best.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, another thing that I think really benefits Vivi is I think he's been around long enough where he looks at certain players and says, I can't beat them anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe he has confidence issues against some of the top guys, which would explain why maybe he was relegated. But here, it's like, he's still top 20 guy, you know? And he's reminding everyone, it's like, okay, well, these players here, no, I should own these players. He even thought about a little trap there. S0bek sneaks through with a minor counterattack, but yeah, dude, I mean, it's good to see, and it's fun to have a format that rewards people for the form they're in, and for Vivi, he's going to be rewarded with platinum. This is some of the best Age of Empires I've seen, and there's no way, I'm sorry, S0bek, but I cannot think of a single way that you can beat this. Double treble from Vivi, and he's Byzantines and you're not.
Yeah. Extra 40% HP on those castles right away is going to be tough to deal with. Even if you rush architecture, unfortunately, the percentages are still not there in your favor. You just don't have an army. Vivi does. He's got the castles in perfect position. He's locking down all of the important resources in the middle of the map. We can really, I don't think, find many faults in how our red players approaching this game. And
I will say, S0bek is doing everything he can try, right? Getting architecture's crazy. You don't see that frequently. So he knows he needs every ounce of HP he can get to try and compete. But the camels are going to raid. So that will apply a pretty big blow to his eco. And then Byzantine castles are still going to be stronger. Vivi seems prepared for a pretty long Treb war. And then he's got chemistry coming in. So bombard cannons are an option from the Siege Workshop he's already built.
Yeah, and of course, with the extra HP, you even get more more HP per stone spent when it comes to repairing. So you can it's even better in the Treb War to have that extra HP bonus.
Yeah. S0bek is going to try and switch into ranged units. I like it because you have the castles. It benefits the castles to get those upgrades. There's camels out there. Can be great against camels, but of course, there's going to be strong skirms on the other side. And the camels are still raiding. He doesn't have the army, and he's about to run out of gold as well.
T90, Vivi rushed guilds in early Imperial Age. That's when you know that they're just a little bit of a more intelligent and better AoE 2 player. It's like playing AoE 2 with a top hat and a monocle.
I mean, I think he did it in a little bit of a panic. Because he was like, oh crap, I actually am out of gold in my base. So that is actually kind of a problem. But he lost his castle. He'll take down S0bek's, and now might just see how these bombard cannons perform for Vivi.
I mean, credit to S0bek. I mean, he is not shirking on the Treb war, but yeah, it is definitely over. And I mean, we've said it already. It has just been such an impressive series from Vivi, and this is a Vivi I'd love to see go up against the top talent we have in AoE 2 right now in Platinum.
I agree. I mean, I would say for every player who's won their group, they have at times don't want to come off the wrong way here, but they've looked cleaner. They've looked better than certain players in Platinum who were wondering if they're going to stay up, right? Now, that could be the quality of the competition. Obviously, the quality of the competition is maybe a little bit weaker in gold, but a little bit weaker because we're still talking top 50 AoE2. Vivi seems like he deserves to be in Platinum. Excited to see him back next season. And if we see that version of Vivi, I think he stays there, honestly. He's that good.
Yeah. I would be surprised if he got relegated again, at least in the next season.
Yeah, but we don't know what the groups will look like just yet, so I guess we'll have to see. So now we have one series remaining in all of Gold's groups. And viewers, I would love for you to avoid using the site for just a moment, so we can look at this. I think I should be able to get it working here, Orlu, but S0bek's gonna need...
I have it working right now.
Okay, well, you could use it. That's fine. You're allowed. Okay, so well, with the result we had earlier today, Overtaken winning 2-1, which if you missed it was ridiculous because Guki was already relegated, and that last win from her really made things tricky for Overtaken. Vivi then wins 3-0. It puts S0bek's chances at playoffs at 62%. And it puts it puts so much importance on this next series, dude.
Oh, this is gonna be wild, man.
Okay, so it's Slam Lucho. If Slam wins 2-1, he survives and goes second place. Wait. If Slam wins 2-1, Lucho survives as well. Oh.
Yep.
And then
so
Overtaken's
Slam needs
out.
to win 3-0 for Lucho to get eliminated.
Oh. Okay, so Slam 3-0 saves Overtaken. Or a Lucho 2-1 or 3-0 saves Overtaken and eliminates Slam.
And then S0bek is going to be happy because then he advances to the playoffs.
Wow, dude. This is oh.
This is what the stakes you want to have in the last series, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is perfect from that perspective. This is crazy that only 3 games could change so much.